The forest of Calvara whispered with 1,000 voices. Wind through crystalline leaves, the hum of bioluminescent moss, the distant calls of creatures that had never known Earth's sun. Jonah Red heard none of it as poetry. To him, it was just noise, the same as every other god-forsaken planet he'd drifted to since the war ended and left him with nothing but a broken ship and broken pride. He stumbled through the undergrowth, his coat, once military issue, now held together by patches and stubbornness, snagging on thorns that glowed faintly purple in the twilight. His stomach growled. 3 days since his last meal, the settlement had made it clear, no work for humans. Not here. Not on Kilvara, where the Velkari ruled with their forearms and their crystalline eyes and their absolute certainty that humanity was a blight. Then he heard it, a sound that didn't belong to the forest. Crying. Jonah froze. It was weak, pathetic, the kind of sound that came from something small and dying. He should have kept walking, should have saved his energy, his dwindling compassion, for himself. But his feet moved anyway, carrying him toward a clearing where the moonlight, 3 moons, because of course this planet needed 3, painted everything in shades of silver and blue. There, wrapped in what looked like ceremonial cloth, was a child. No, not a child. An infant. Valkyrie by the look of her, 6-fingered hands, skin that shimmered with an opalescent sheen, delicate antennae that trembled as she wailed. Someone had left her here, deliberately. Jonah crouched, his knees protesting. Well, shit, he muttered. The infant's eyes were closed, sealed shut by some kind of membrane. Birth defect, maybe. He'd heard rumors that the Velkari were particular about their young, that imperfection was seen as a bad omen. Apparently, the rumors were true. He should have walked away. This wasn't his problem. This wasn't his species. But those tiny hands were grasping at nothing, and that wail was getting weaker. All right, Jonah said, scooping the bundle up with surprising gentleness. Guess it's you and me, kid. The first week was hell. Jonah knew nothing about Velkari infants. He knew nothing about any infants. He'd been a soldier, a pilot, a drunk, never a father. But he learned. He learned that Sira, he'd started calling her that after seeing the marking on her cloth, needed warmth, needed the pulp from silver fruit mashed into paste, needed someone to hum low sounds that seemed to calm her trembling antennae. He learned that she was completely blind, not just her eyes sealed. When they finally opened after 10 days, they were clouded, milky white, tracking nothing. She would never see. Not without technology the Velkari clearly hadn't deemed worth the investment. You got a raw deal, Sira, Jonah told her one night, as she lay against his chest in the crude shelter he'd built from salvaged metal and woven branches. But I guess we both did. She made a small chirping sound, her antennae brushing his chin. Something in his chest, something he'd thought long dead, shifted. Months passed. Jonah became Sira's eyes. He described everything to her. The way the forest canopy filtered light into dancing patterns, the colors of the various moons as they rose and set, the shape of the creatures that watched them from the trees, some curious, some hungry, all kept at bay by Jonah's old service pistol and his unwillingness to die just yet. There's a bird thing, he'd say, watching a 6-winged creature spiral overhead. Blue and gold. It's doing loops like it's showing off, probably trying to impress a mate. Lot of good that does when she's not watching. Sira would laugh, a tinkling sound like wind chimes, and reach toward the sky with her hands, as if she could touch what Jonah painted with words. He taught her to navigate by sound and touch, showed her how to identify safe plants by their texture, dangerous ones by their scent. He fashioned toys from salvaged tech, things that chimed and vibrated, teaching her patterns and rhythms. And she grew. Velkari matured faster than humans. By her 2nd year, Sira was walking, talking in her melodic language that Jonah had learned piece by piece. She was brilliant, curious, fearless in the way only children who've never known cruelty can be. Tell me about stars, Jonah, she'd say, her antennae tilted toward him in the way that meant she was listening with her whole being. And he would. He'd tell her about Earth's single moon, about Mars' dusty red plains, about the nebula near Proxima, where he'd almost died and wished he had. They're beautiful, she'd say. Yeah, kid, they are. Everything changed the day Varutek found them. The Velkari elder stood at the edge of their camp, his ceremonial robes marking him as someone important, someone powerful. Behind him stood warriors, their weapons humming with barely contained energy. The abomination lives, Varutek said, his voice layered with harmonics that made Jonah's teeth ache. Her name is Sira, Jonah replied, stepping between the elder and the child who clung to his leg. It should have died. It was meant to die. The forest would have been merciful. Merciful? Jonah laughed, bitter and sharp. You left a baby to be eaten by predators, and you call it mercy? Varutek's crystalline eyes narrowed. You are human. You understand nothing of our ways. The blind are cursed. They weaken the tribe. She's not weak. Jonah's hand drifted to his pistol. She's smarter than half the people I've met. She just sees different. She does not see at all. No, Jonah agreed. But I do, and I'll be damned if I let you finish what you started. The warriors moved forward. Jonah drew his pistol, knowing it was futile, knowing he was outnumbered and outgunned, knowing he was going to die in this alien forest for a child who wasn't even his species. Then Sira spoke. Elder Varutek, she said, her voice clear and calm despite her fear. I know the hymn of ascension. I know the patterns of the 14 moons. I know the names of our ancestors back 7 generations. Jonah taught me. He became my eyes, my teacher, my family. If I am cursed, then why do I carry our people's knowledge? If I am weak, then why do I survive? Silence. Varutek stared at the child, at Jonah, at the impossible scene before him. You taught her our ways? He asked Jonah. Figured she should know where she comes from, Jonah said, even if they didn't want her. The elder was quiet for a long moment, then slowly he lowered his staff. Perhaps, he said carefully, we were too hasty. Perhaps. There is strength we did not see. Yeah, Jonah said, holstering his pistol with shaking hands. Funny how that works. They didn't return to the tribe. Not then. Maybe not ever. But Varutek left them supplies and promised the hunters would no longer view them as trespassers. That night, as 3 moons rose over Calvera, Jonah held Sira close and described the sky. Beautiful, she whispered. Yeah, kid, he said, his voice rough with something that might have been hope. It really is.